My boyfriend is suing me for $500,000 for giving away his cat. But I just found out he was secretly poisoning my clothes to make the animal attack me so he could claim a $2 million inheritance. I am sitting in my car with fresh stitches on my cheek, realizing that the man I loved did not want a partner. He wanted a victim to help him unlock a trust fund. I thought I was saving the cat by taking it to his sister, but I accidentally uncovered a sick plan that turned our penthouse into a hunting ground. He convinced everyone that I was the unstable one, painting me as a thief while he calculated the market value of my disfigurement. How do you breathe when you realize the person sleeping next to you was waiting for you to be mauled? I am holding the chemical report that proves his crime, and I am shaking so hard I can barely hold the steering wheel. I have to go back in there to face him one last time, but I am terrified. Please help me. What would you do in my situation? My name is Iris. I am 22 years old, a detail that feels less like a biological fact and more like an indictment of my own stupidity. I work, or used to work, as a barista at a strictly fair trade coffee shop in Capitol Hill, Seattle, where I spent my days perfecting latte art for tech bros who did not tip. I come from a family that believes love is demonstrated through silence and distance, which perhaps explains why I was so desperate to find it in the noise of the city. Currently, I am sitting in a motel room 3 towns over, staring at a face in the mirror that I barely recognize, not just because of the fresh, angry scar running down my cheek, but because the eyes belong to a stranger, a colder, harder stranger. But before the lawyers, the police sirens, and the viral hashtags, there was just the rain. It was a typical gray Seattle afternoon in November, the kind where the drizzle does not fall so much as it hangs in the air, soaking you to the bone. That was the day I moved into Mark's penthouse at the Zenith. I remember standing in the foyer, dripping wet, clutching a soggy cardboard box labeled Art Supplies. The apartment was breathtaking. It was a 2-bedroom condo on the 40th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the Space Needle and the dark waters of Puget Sound. The interior was a study in aggressive minimalism. Italian leather sofas that cost more than my college tuition, a glass coffee table that looked invisible and dangerous, and marble countertops so white they hurt my eyes. It did not look like a home. It looked like an Apple Store showroom. Careful with the floor. Babe, Mark said. He did not offer to take the box from my trembling arms. Instead, he stood by the kitchen island, sipping an espresso, looking every inch the successful 30-year-old software consultant he claimed to be. His blonde hair was perfectly gelled, his blue eyes sharp and assessing. That is imported Italian slate. Water stains are a nightmare to get out. Right. Sorry, I mumbled, hastily kicking off my wet Converse sneakers. I felt small. I felt dirty. I felt like an intruder in a museum. Inner monologue. Pull yourself together. Iris, he is asking you to move in after 6 months. This is commitment. This is adulthood. Do not ruin it by being your usual clumsy, awkward self. He loves you. He just likes things. Sautjinghaling. 2 hash is greater than clean. I placed the box down on a designated rug, trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in my gut. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I was leaving my cramped studio apartment with the leaky faucet to live with the man of my dreams. But as I looked around the pristine space, I could not shake the feeling that I was contaminating it just by existing. That was when I saw him, sitting atop the highest shelf of a custom-built cat tree that looked more like a piece of abstract sculpture was barren. Mark had mentioned he had a cat. He had shown me pictures on his Instagram. Charming. Filtered photos of a sleek creature sleeping in patches of sunlight with captions like "Number my best friend" and "Number cat dad." But the animal staring down at me now bore no resemblance to those soft images. Baron was massive. He was not a normal house cat. He was a savanna mix, possessing the long, muscular limbs of a wild serval and a coat patterned with predatory spots. His ears were tall and swiveled toward me like radar dishes, but it was his eyes that froze the blood in my veins. They were pale, unblinking yellow orbs that did not hold curiosity. They held contempt. "Baron, come say hi to mommy," Mark cooed, his voice shifting into that sickeningly sweet register people use for infants. Baron did not move. He let out a low, guttural sound, not quite a growl, but a vibration that I could feel in the floorboards. "He is just adjusting," Mark said dismissively, walking over to scratch the beast behind the ears. Baron leaned into Mark's touch but kept his yellow eyes locked on me. "Cats are territorial. He needs to know you respect his space. He is Saoyutsing too big," I managed to say, forcing a smile. "He is royalty," Mark corrected, his tone losing its warmth. "And he is sensitive. My grandmother left him to me. He is very particular about his environment. So, we need to go over the house rules." I blinked. "House rules?" Mark pulled a sleek folder from the granite countertop. He slid it across the island toward me. It was not a sticky note, with "Please do the dishes" scribbled on it. It was a typed, 5-page document entitled "Cohabitation and Asset Protection Agreement." "Just standard stuff," Mark said, flashing that dazzling, dimpled smile that had made me fall in love with him at the coffee shop 6 months ago. "Since the lease is in my name, and the furniture is Saoyutsing 2 is greater than, well, an investment. I just want to make sure we are on the same page. It protects both of us." I picked up the document. My hands were shaking slightly. Clause 4. Section B. Tenant Iris agrees to pay 40% of the mortgage interest as rent, plus 50% of all utilities. Clause 7. Section A. The feline resident Baron has full roaming privileges. No doors are to be closed at any time. Clause 7. Section C. Any damage to property caused by the tenant or the tenant's negligence regarding the feline resident will be reimbursed at full retail value. Inner monologue. Wait, I am paying his mortgage interest? I am barely making minimum wage plus tips, and I cannot close the bathroom door? Is this normal? Maybe this is how rich people do relationships. Maybe I am just being a broke, ungrateful girl from the suburbs. If I say no, where do I go? I already gave up my apartment. "Mark," I started, my voice thin. "The rent. Saoyutsing 2 is greater than it is a little high for me. My hours at the cafe got cut last week." Mark's smile did not falter, but his eyes went cold. It was a look I would come to know intimately, a look of disappointed patience, like a teacher dealing with a slow child. "Iris, babe, this is downtown Seattle. Do you know what a 1-bedroom in this building goes for? $3,000. I am asking for $1,200. I am practically subsidizing you." He walked around the counter and wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me close. I smelled his expensive cologne, sandalwood, and money. "I want us to be partners, equals. I do not want a freeloader. You do not want to be a gold digger, right?" The phrase stung. Gold digger. He knew exactly where to hit. He knew my insecurity about our financial gap. Of course not, I whispered, melting into his hug, desperate to reclaim the warmth. Good. He kissed the top of my head. Then sign it. Let us start our life, I signed. I signed away my autonomy with a cheap ballpoint pen, thinking I was signing a love letter. As I put the pen down, a sudden crash echoed from the living room. We spun around. My box of art supplies, the one containing my sketchbooks, my charcoal pencils, and a small, framed photo of my late mother, was upside down on the floor. Baron was sitting next to it. He looked at me, then slowly, deliberately, extended a single claw and hooked it into the cardboard. He ripped. The sound of tearing cardboard was loud in the silent apartment. Baron, I gasped, rushing forward. My mom's picture is in there. Do not yell at him. Mark snapped. His voice was sharper than the cat's claws. He was not looking at the spilled contents of my box. He was looking at the cat. You startled him with your sudden movement. Look, he is stressed. Baron was not stressed. He was calm. He was sitting amidst the wreckage of my belongings, licking his paw with a languid, arrogant grace. Mark, he knocked it over on purpose, I said, kneeling to check the glass of the photo frame. It was cracked, a spiderweb fracture right over my mother's face. Tears pricked my eyes. Do not project human malice onto an animal. Iris, it makes you sound crazy. Mark Hill, running a hand through his hair. He is just a cat. He is exploring. You should not have left the box in his walkway. His walkway? I looked up at him. It is the middle of the living room. It is his house. Mark said, simply, as if stating a law of physics. You are the guest. You need to earn his trust. Now, clean this mess up before the dust gets into the air conditioning vents. I have a Zoom call in 10 minutes. He turned and walked into his office, closing the door behind him. The only door in the house, apparently, that was allowed to be closed. I was left alone on the cold slate floor. I looked at the cracked photo of my mother. Then I looked at Baron. The cat narrowed his eyes. He let out a soft hiss, not of fear, but of warning. It was a sound that said, "You do not belong here, and I am going to make sure you leave." Inner monologue. It is just a rough start. Mark is stressed with work. The cat just needs to get used to my scent. I can fix this. I can be the perfect girlfriend. I can be the person Mark wants me to be. I just need to try harder. I reached out to pick up a charcoal pencil. Baron swiped. Fast as lightning, 3 bright red lines appeared on the back of my hand. Blood welled up, stark against my pale skin. I did not scream. I just stared at the blood, then at the cat. Baron did not run away. He sat there, watching the blood drip onto the pristine Italian slate, waiting to see what I would do. I grabbed a tissue and wiped the floor first, before my hand, because I was already learning. In this house, the floor mattered more than I did. 2 weeks into my new life at the Zenith, I learned that silence was not peace. Silence was simply the sound of Mark watching me, waiting for a mistake. The apartment was always cold, maintained at a crisp 68 degrees because Mark claimed it was better for his pores and for Baron's coat. I walked around in oversized sweaters and wool socks, shivering, while Mark and the cat seemed to thrive in the frigid air. I was working double shifts at the coffee shop to make the rent payments. My bank account was bleeding out. Every time I transferred $1,200 to Mark via Zelle, I felt a piece of my independence wither away, but I told myself this was an investment in our future. I came home on a Tuesday evening, my feet throbbing from 8 hours of standing on concrete floors. My apron smelled like stale espresso and almond milk. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe a glass of cheap wine. As I keyed into the penthouse, the smell hit me first. It was not the scent of dinner. It was the sharp, metallic tang of destruction. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. "Honey, I am home," I called out, my voice raspy. There was no answer. I walked into the bedroom to change. That was when I saw it. My closet door was open. I always closed it. I was obsessive about it because of Clause 7. Section A. But there it was. Ajar, and on the floor, amidst a pile of shredded leather and white stuffing, sat Baron. He was grooming his paws, his rough tongue rasping over his fur. My stomach dropped. Lying next to him was the carcass of my vintage leather satchel. It was not a designer bag that I had bought to show off. It was a gift from my father 3 years ago, found at an estate sale. He had spent months restoring the leather himself, oiling it until it shone like cognac. It was the last thing he gave me before his dementia took his memory of my name. It was ruined. The straps were chewed through. The main body of the bag was slashed as if by a razor blade. "No," I whispered. I fell to my knees, reaching for the tattered remains. "No, no, no." Baron looked up. He did not run. He did not flinch. He blinked, his yellow eyes slowly. A gesture of pure dominance. "Mark," I screamed. Mark appeared in the doorway a moment later, holding a glass of red wine. He looked annoyed, not at the mess, but at the volume of my voice. "What is it now, Iris?" "I am on a call with the developers in Tokyo." I held up the shredded remains of the bag, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Tears, hot and fast, spilled onto my cheeks. "Look what he did. Look at it. Mark, this was my dad's. He destroyed it." Mark took a sip of wine. He looked at the bag, then at Baron, then back at me. His expression was maddeningly neutral. "Iris, you left the closet door open. You know Baron has high prey drive. He probably thought it was a toy. Leather smells like animal hide. It is his instinct. I did not leave it open." I sobbed, clutching the leather to my chest. "I latched it this morning. I checked it twice. He must have pried it open. He is a monster." Mark Sahil. A long, weary sound that made me feel like a hysterical child. He walked over and crouched down, but not to comfort me. He reached out and stroked Baron's head. "Do not call him a monster. That is abusive language. He can feel your energy. Iris, you have been stressed about money lately, and animals pick up on that hostility. He was probably acting out because he feels unsafe around you." "Unsafe?" I choked out a laugh of disbelief. "He just destroyed the most precious thing I own, and you are saying he feels unsafe? It is just a bag." "Iris, it is a material object. You are reacting like a teenager. This is why I worry about your maturity levels." Mark stood up, brushing cat hair off his trousers. "Besides, Baron looks stressed. Look at his ears. They are pinned back. You need to apologize to him." I stared at him. The room seemed to tilt. "You want me. Sao yu ting hao ling. 2 hash is greater than to apologize. Sao yu ting hao ling. 2 hash is greater than to the cat. I want you to lower your voice and reestablish a bond of trust." Mark said firmly, "If you continue to scream, I will have to ask you to go for a walk until you can be civil. I will not have this toxicity in my home." Inner monologue. This is insanity. I should leave. I should pack my bag. what is left of it, and go, but I cannot. I have $70 in my checking account until Friday. I have nowhere to go, and he is right. I have been stressed. Maybe I did leave the door unlatched. I am so tired lately. Maybe it is my fault. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. I looked at Mark, his face set in stone, waiting for my submission. I am sorry, I whispered, looking at the floor. I did not mean to yell. Tell Baron, Mark corrected. I closed my eyes. A piece of my soul died in that moment. I am sorry, Baron, I said to the cat. I am sorry I scared you. Baron yawned, exposing his sharp, white fangs, and stretched out on the ruin of my father's gift. Mark smiled, the tension leaving his shoulders. See, was that so hard? Now, since you are already on the floor, clean this up. And Iris, we need to talk about the grocery budget. I gathered the scraps of leather, my heart feeling like a heavy stone. What about the budget? Baron's dietary needs have changed, Mark said casually, walking back toward the kitchen. The vet said he needs a higher protein intake. I am switching him to the organic raw rabbit and quail blend. It is imported from New Zealand. I followed him into the kitchen. Okay, that sounds expensive. It is. It is about $400 a month, Mark said, pouring himself another glass of wine. He did not offer me one, since you are living here rent-free, essentially. I mean, $1,200 is a steal for this location. I think it is fair that you pick up the tab for his food. Consider it your contribution to the household expenses. $400? My voice rose an octave. Mark, that is my entire grocery budget for myself. I am eating ramen and leftover pastries from work. And whose fault is that? Mark leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. If you got a real job instead of playing artist, you would not be counting pennies. Besides, Baron is family. If you loved me, you would want the best for him. Are you saying you do not care about his health? I am saying I cannot afford it. Figure it out. Iris, Mark said, his voice dropping to that cold, dangerous whisper. You wanted to be an adult. Adults pay bills. Adults make sacrifices. If you are too selfish to feed a helpless animal, then maybe I was wrong about you. Maybe you are not the generous, kind girl I thought I met. He set his wine glass down with a sharp clink. I am going to the gym. Have the place cleaned up by the time I get back, and feed him. The delivery just arrived. He walked out. The heavy front door clicked shut. I stood alone in the kitchen. On the counter sat a box of premium raw meat labeled Apex Predator Blend. $400. I looked at the receipt left next to it. He had already charged it to the joint credit card he had made me open for emergencies. I needed to talk to someone. I pulled out my phone and dialed Maya, my best friend from college. Maya, you have to help me, I said as soon as she picked up. He is crazy. The cat destroyed my dad's bag, and Mark made me apologize to it. And now he wants me to pay $500 for cat food. There was a pause on the other end. Iris, are you sure you are not exaggerating? Maya asked gently. What? No. Why would I lie? I do not know. Saoyuting Haoling. 2# is greater than I just saw Mark's post on Instagram 5 minutes ago. It was really sweet. My blood ran cold. What post? I put her on speaker and opened the app. There, at the top of my feed, was a photo of me. It was taken from behind while I was on the floor cleaning up the shredded bag. The filter made the lighting look soft, romantic even. Baron was looking at the camera with wide, innocent eyes. The caption read, So proud of my girl Iris. Even when things get messy, she teaches me patience and love. Baron had a little accident today, but she handled it with such grace. Learning to be a family, one step at a time. Number cat dad, number soulmate, number patience. The comments were flooding in. You guys are saints. She is a keeper. Mark, poor kitty must have been scared. Glad she was gentle. See? Maya said through the phone. He sounds really supportive. Iris, maybe he is just trying to help you adjust. You have been really high-strung lately. Maybe the cat food thing is just his way of asking you to be more involved? I stared at the screen. The picture was a lie. The caption was a lie. The comments were applauding a fiction. Yeah, I whispered, my voice hollow. Yeah, maybe you are right. Maya, I am just tired. Get some sleep. Babe, you sound exhausted. I hung up. I looked down at the raw meat on the counter. I opened the package. The smell of blood filled the kitchen. I spooned the expensive mixture into Baron's crystal bowl. Baron trotted into the kitchen. He rubbed against my leg, purring. It was not a sound of affection. It was the sound of a motor running, an engine of consumption that would eat everything I had. My money, my memories, my sanity. Inner monologue. He is winning. He is turning everyone against me, and he is doing it with a smile. I am trapped in a glass box high above the city, screaming, and everyone outside just sees a pretty girl living a dream life. I have to be careful. If I fight back now, I lose. I have to wait. I have to survive. I watched the cat eat. He tore into the meat with savage efficiency. For a second, I imagined it was my heart in that bowl. The suitcase was Louis Vuitton, a monolith of graphite checkerboard leather standing by the door. Mark was leaving for New York. A business trip, he said. A merger that would secure his promotion to senior partner. For 7 days, I would be the sole custodian of the penthouse, the Italian slate floors, and the beast that prowled them. The instructions are on the fridge, Mark said, adjusting his silk tie in the hallway mirror. 3 pages. Please read them carefully. Iris, Baron's feeding schedule is non-negotiable. 7 in the morning, 12 noon, 6 in the evening. The water must be filtered and chilled to 50 degrees. If it is too cold, he gets a stomach ache. If it is too warm, he will not drink it. I know, I said, leaning against the wall, hiding my hands in the pockets of my oversized cardigan so he would not see me picking at my cuticles. I have got this. Have a safe flight. He turned to me. His gaze swept over my face, critical and cool. He did not kiss me. He reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture that felt less like affection and more like a correction. Do not disappoint me. Iris, this is a test run. If you can handle the apartment and Baron for a week without a crisis, maybe we can talk about getting your name on the lease eventually. Consider it an audition for the rest of your life. Inner monologue. An audition. That is what I am to him. A supporting actress trying to land a permanent role in the chaotic movie of his ego. But a week alone? A week without his eyes watching me eat, watching me sleep, watching me breathe? That sounds like paradise. I will be perfect. I lead. He grabbed his bag and walked out. The heavy door clicked shut, engaging the electronic lock. I waited 10 seconds. Then I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for a month. For the first 3 days, the silence was intoxicating. I turned the thermostat up to 72 degrees. I walked around in my underwear. I ate cereal for dinner, standing over the sink. I felt, for the first time since moving in, like a human being, but the apartment was not truly empty. Baron was always there. He did not sleep in the sun like normal cats. He sat on high perches, the top of the refrigerator, the highest shelf of the bookcase, the mantle of the electric fireplace, and he watched me. His gaze was heavy, physical. Wherever I went, I felt those yellow eyes boring into the back of my neck. On the fourth night, the storm hit Seattle. It was a historic nor'easter, the kind that whips the Puget Sound into a frenzy and throws rain against the windows like handfuls of gravel. The wind howled around the 40th floor, making the entire building groan and sway. The power flickered twice before stabilizing. I hated storms. They made me feel small and exposed. I retreated to the master bedroom around 10 o'clock. I locked the door. It was a violation of Clause 7, Section A. No doors are to be closed at any time. But Mark was 3,000 miles away, and the storm was terrifying. I needed a barrier. I needed to feel safe. I took a sleeping pill, a leftover prescription from when my wisdom teeth were pulled, hoping to knock myself out before the thunder got worse. I crawled into the massive bed with sheets that had a thread count higher than my credit score and pulled the duvet up to my chin. Sleep came quickly, black and dreamless. I do not know what time it was when I woke up. The room was pitch black. The storm outside had intensified. Thunder cracked like a whip right outside the glass walls, shaking the bed frame. But it was not the sound that woke me. It was the pressure. There was a weight on my chest, heavy, concentrated. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the dark. A flash of lightning illuminated the room in a stark, strobe light blue. Baron was sitting on my chest. He was crouched low, his ears flattened against his skull so tight they were almost invisible. His mouth was slightly open, revealing the glistening white points of his fangs. He was not purring. A low, vibrating growl emanated from his chest, resonating through my rib cage. Inner monologue. How did he get in? I locked the door. I checked the lock. Did the latch fail? Did Mark have a remote override? Or is this animal actually a demon? Aaron, I whispered, my voice trembling. Get down. Nice kitty. I moved my hand slowly, trying to push the duvet down to protect my neck. The movement was the trigger. Baron screamed. It was not a meow. It was a banshee wail, a sound of pure, unadulterated hatred. Saoying Hao Ling. 2 hashes greater than he lunged. I threw my hands up instinctively, but he was faster. I felt the impact of his weight hitting my face, followed instantly by the searing, hot agony of claws ripping through skin. One claw hooked into my left cheek, just below the eye. Another tore across my forehead. I screamed, thrashing wildly. Get off me. I rolled off the bed, hitting the floor hard with my shoulder. Baron did not let go immediately. He rode me down, his back claws digging into my shoulder through my t-shirt. I flailed, my hand connecting with the bedside lamp. It crashed to the floor. Finally, he disengaged, springing away into the darkness. I scrambled backward, crab walking until my back hit the wall. I was gasping for air, hyperventilating. I reached up to touch my face. My hand came away wet and warm. Lightning flashed again. I saw my hand coated in dark blood. I looked across the room. Baron was sitting by the open door, the door I had locked, watching me. He licked a paw, cleaning my blood from his claws. I dragged myself to the bathroom and flipped the switch. The light was blinding. I looked in the mirror and suppressed a retch. My face was a ruin. A deep, jagged gash ran from my cheekbone down to my jawline. The skin was laid open. It was deep. It was going to scar. Another scratch narrowly missed my left eye. Slicing through my eyebrow, blood was dripping off my chin, staining my white t-shirt crimson. Inner monologue. He tried to blind me. That was not an accident. That was not play. He was hunting me. If I had not woken up, Sayu Jinghao Ling, R. Jinghao Dayu, panic, cold and sharp, replaced the shock. I could not stay here. If I went back to sleep, he would finish the job. I grabbed a towel and pressed it to my face, the white cotton turning red instantly. I needed help. I grabbed my phone. My first instinct was to call Mark. My thumb hovered over his name. Stop. Think. Iris. What will he say? He will ask if the cat is okay. He will ask why the door was locked. He will say I provoked him. He will worry about blood on the sheets. I could not call Mark. I scrolled down. Sarah, Mark's older sister. I had only met her twice. She was the black sheep of the family, a woman who lived in a cluttered cottage in Tacoma and ran a dog rescue. Mark called her chaotic and a mess, but she had kind eyes, and she hated Mark. I dialed. It was 3 a.m. She picked up on the second ring. Hello? Iris? Her voice was groggy, but alert. Sarah. I choked out, tears mixing with the blood on my face. Sayu Jinghao Ling, 2 hashes greater than, I need help. Please. It is Baron. He attacked me. Are you okay? Did he bite you? Cat bites can get infected in hours. Her tone shifted instantly from sleepy to professional urgency. He clawed my face. It is bad. Sarah, there is so much blood. I am scared. I cannot be in the house with him. I am locked in the bathroom. Listen to me, Sarah said firmly. I am getting in the car right now. I have a key to the penthouse Mark does not know about. I will be there in 40 minutes. Do not open the door until you hear my voice. Keep pressure on the wound. What about Mark? I sobbed. He is going to kill me. Screw Mark. She spat. Just stay alive. Iris, I am coming. 45 minutes later, I heard the front door beep. Iris? It is Sarah. I unlocked the bathroom door and stumbled out. Sarah was standing in the hallway, wearing a raincoat over pajamas, holding a heavy-duty animal transport crate. When she saw me, her face went pale. Oh my God, she whispered. She dropped the crate and rushed to me, gently pulling the towel away. Honey, you need stitches. We have to go to the emergency room. The cat, I whispered, trembling. Where is he? I saw him in the living room, Sarah said, her jaw tightening. He was sitting on the sofa like nothing happened. She guided me to the bench in the foyer. Sit here. Do not move. I am going to get him. Be careful. I warned. He is crazy. Sarah picked up the crate and a pair of thick leather gloves from her pocket. She walked into the living room. I held my breath, waiting for the screeching, the fighting, but there was silence. 2 minutes later, Sarah returned. Baron was inside the crate. He was not hissing. He was not throwing himself against the bars. He was just sitting there, looking. Sayu Jinghao Ling, 2 hash is greater than bored. He walked right in, Sarah said, her voice sounding strange, perplexed. I just opened the door and he walked in. She set the crate down and looked at me. Iris, I am taking him tonight. He cannot stay here, and neither can you. But first, we get the cat out. Mark will freak out. I stammered. He loves that cat. It is his grandmother's legacy. He made me sign a contract. Sao yu jing hao ling, ar jing hao da yu. Sarah looked at the crate, then back at me. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of pity and a dark, simmering anger that was not directed at me. Legacy, she scoffed bitterly. That is one word for it. She picked up the crate. The handle rattled. Iris, listen to me closely. You are not stealing him. You are rehoming him to a family member for emergency safety reasons. I will take full responsibility. Tell Mark I forced you. Tell him I saw your face and took executive action. Sao yu jing hao ling, or jing hao da yu. But Sao yu jing hao ling, or jing hao da yu. Trust me. Sarah interrupted, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that scared me almost as much as the cat. You are doing the right thing. In fact, you just saved him from hell. And if you are lucky, you might have just saved yourself. 2. Inner monologue. Saved him from hell? He lives in a penthouse. He eats organic quail. What is she talking about? And why does she look at the cat with such sorrow? Go, I whispered. Just take him away, please. Sarah nodded. She carried the crate out the door. The latch clicked. The apartment was silent. Truly silent this time. I sat on the bench, clutching the bloody towel. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a throbbing ache in my face and a cold, sinking dread in my stomach. I had just given away Mark's most prized possession. I looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror. The gash was ugly. It would leave a mark forever. But as I looked at the empty spot where the cat tree stood, a strange sensation washed over me. Sao yu jing hao ling. 2 hashes greater than relief. I was bleeding. I was terrified of what Mark would do when he found out. I was likely going to be homeless in a week. But for the first time in months, I was not being watched. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the kitchen. I found the 3-page instruction list Mark had left on the fridge. Clause 1, Baron comes first. I ripped the paper off the fridge. I crumpled it into a ball, and then, with a shaking hand, I threw it into the trash. The emergency room doctor had stitched my face up with the detached efficiency of a seamstress repairing a torn hem. 12 stitches, 12 black threads pulling the edges of my skin together, forming a jagged zipper that ran from my cheekbone to my jaw. He had told me to keep it dry and to expect scarring. He had asked, with a raised eyebrow, if I felt safe at home. It was just a cat. I had said, my voice hollow, a freak accident. I lead. I protected Mark even when he was 3,000 miles away. 2 days passed. The apartment was silent, without Baron. The air felt lighter, less pressurized. I cleaned obsessively, scrubbing the blood out of the carpet with hydrogen peroxide until my fingers were raw. I wanted to erase the violence before Mark returned. I wanted to believe that if the apartment was perfect, he might forgive me for banishing his prince. I was standing in the kitchen, arranging fresh hydrangeas in a vase, when the electronic lock chirped. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. He was early. He was not supposed to be back until Sunday. The door swung open. Mark stood there, his suit slightly rumpled from travel, his garment bag slung over one shoulder. He looked tired, but triumphant. The merger must have gone well. Iris, I managed to catch the red eye, he announced, dropping his bag on the floor. The deal closed early. Sao yu jing hao ling, ar jing hao da yu. He stopped. He did not look at the flowers. He did not look at the clean floors. He did not even look at the massive, white gauze bandage taped to the left side of my face. He looked at the empty cat tree. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Mark slowly turned his head, scanning the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. His nostrils flared. "Where is he?" Mark asked. His voice was quiet, terrifyingly calm. "Ark," I started, my hands gripping the edge of the granite counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "Welcome home. I, Sao Tsing Hao Ling, Ard Tsing Hao Dai. Where is Baron?" He cut me off, stepping further into the room. Why is he not greeting me? Why is his food bowl empty? I took a deep breath. There was an incident. The night of the storm. Mark finally looked at me. His eyes landed on the bandage. For a second, I thought I saw concern. I thought he would rush over, touch my face, ask me if I was in pain. "What did you do to him?" he whispered. I recoiled as if he had slapped me. What did I do? I touched the gauze. Mark. He attacked me while I was sleeping. He tore my face open. I had to go to the emergency room. "I have 12 stitches. Mark waved his hand dismissively, as if my injury was a minor inconvenience. A fly buzzing around his head. Cat scratch. Iris. It is what they do when they are provoked. Where is he? Is he hurt? Did you hit him?" "No, I did not touch him. I called Sarah. She came and got him. She took him to her place because I was bleeding everywhere and I was terrified." The change in Mark was instantaneous and violent. He did not yell immediately. Instead, his face went completely slack, drained of all color. He looked like a statue of a man, cold and hard. Then, he picked up the crystal vase of hydrangeas I had just arranged. The vase that cost $300, and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall with a sound like a gunshot. Water and glass exploded, raining down on the pristine floor. I screamed and covered my head. "You gave him to Sarah?" Mark roared, his voice cracking. "You gave my cat to that incompetent, hoarding witch?" He stalked toward me. I backed away until I hit the refrigerator. I had no choice. I cried. He tried to blind me. "Mark, look at my face. Do you not care that I am hurt?" Mark stopped inches from me. He loomed over me, his breathing ragged. He leaned in close, his blue eyes wide and manic. "Your face will heal. Iris, you are young. Your skin has collagen. But Baron, you disrupted his environment. You traumatized him, and you gave him to the one person in this world who wants to destroy me." Inner monologue. He is insane. He is actually insane. I am standing here with a mutilated face, and he is talking about collagen. He does not see me. He has never seen me. I am just a prop that malfunctioned. Call her. Mark hissed. Call her right now and tell her to bring him back. Tonight, I cannot. I shook my head, tears soaking into the bandage. She said she would not bring him back until you agreed to keep him contained. She said it was negligent. Mark laughed. It was a dry, humorless bark. Negligent? She is stealing my property. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. He did not call Sarah. He started tapping furiously on the screen. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I am checking the market value," he muttered, not looking up. A purebred savannah of Baron's generation. With his pedigree, Sao Yuting Haling, Cat 2. Yes, here it is. Current valuation is roughly $15,000, plus the emotional distress, plus the training costs. He looked up at me, and his expression had shifted from rage to a cold. Predatory calculation. Do you know what the threshold for grand larceny is in Washington state? Iris? I shook my head, unable to speak. It is $750. Mark said softly, anything above that is a felony. It carries a prison sentence of up to 10 years. My knees gave out. I slid down the front of the refrigerator until I was crouching on the floor. You, Saoyuting Haling, 2 hash is greater than you are joking. I whispered, I am your girlfriend. I live here. You are a guest. Mark corrected. You are a guest who took a high-value asset belonging to the homeowner and transferred it to a third party without consent. That is theft. Iris, that is grand larceny. I did not steal him. I gave him to your sister for safety. And if she does not return him, if she claims he ran away, or if she keeps him, Mark knelt down so his face was level with mine, then you are an accomplice to theft. I can have the police here in 10 minutes. I can have you arrested. Iris, imagine that. A nice girl like you, with a criminal record. You will never finish art school. You will never get a decent job. Your life will be over. Inner monologue. He is enjoying this. Look at his eyes. He is not sad about the cat. He is excited. He has power. He has leverage. This was never about love. It was about ownership. And now he owns me completely. Please. I begged, humiliating myself. Please do not call the police. I will call Sarah. I will beg her. Mark smiled. It was the same charming smile he had worn the day we met. But now it looked like the baring of fangs. Good, he said. He stood up and brushed invisible dust off his suit jacket. But it is not just about getting him back anymore. Iris, there is a penalty for this. A breach of contract. He walked over to the kitchen island and picked up a piece of mail. I want him back by tomorrow morning. And until then, you are going to sleep in the guest room. I cannot look at you right now. Your face, Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hash is greater than. He gestured vaguely at my injury with a look of disgust. It is upsetting me. It is a reminder of your incompetence. He turned his back on me and walked toward the bedroom. Clean up that glass. He threw over his shoulder. And Iris, if there is a single scratch on Baron when he returns, I will sue you for every penny you will ever make for the rest of your miserable life. The bedroom door slammed shut. I sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by broken glass and dying flowers. The smell of the hydrangeas was cloying, sickly sweet. I touched the bandage on my face. It was wet with fresh blood where the tears had soaked through. I was not just trapped, I was being hunted, and the man I loved was holding the rifle. I needed to call Sarah, but not to get the cat back. I needed to know why that animal was worth so much to him, because it was not love. I knew that now. Mark did not love anything that he could not control. There was something else, a secret hidden in the fur of a $15,000 beast. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling so hard I could barely unlock the screen. The morning sun did not bring warmth. It brought a cold, hard clarity that illuminated the dust motes dancing in the sterile air of the penthouse. I had spent the night in the guest room, curled into a ball on a mattress that felt too firm, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the terrifying silence where a cat should have been prowling. I walked out into the living area at 7 o'clock. Mark was already awake. He sat at the glass dining table, dressed in his crisp running gear, a protein shake in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. He looked refreshed. He looked like a man who had solved a complex equation. He did not look up when I entered. He simply slid a single sheet of paper across the glass surface. It made a dry, rasping sound. Read it. Mark said pleasantly. I approached the table warily. My face throbbed beneath the bandages, a steady drumbeat of pain that synchronized with my pulse. I picked up the paper. It was an itemized invoice. Item 1, loss of companion, animal purebred, Savannah F5, $15,000. Item 2, breach of cohabitation contract, unauthorized disposal of asset, $50,000. Item 3, emotional distress and psychological trauma, $200,000. Item 4, loss of potential breeding revenue, stud fees, $235,000. Total amount due, $500,000. I stared at the number, 5 followed by 5 zeros. It was a number that did not exist in my reality. It was more money than my parents had made in their entire lives. Mark, I whispered, my voice trembling. This is insane. You cannot charge me $500,000. Mark took a slow sip of his shake. I can. Actually, I spoke to my lawyer this morning. Since you signed the agreement acknowledging the value of the household assets, you are liable, but I am a reasonable man. Iris, I do not want to ruin you. He stood up and walked around the table, stopping just behind me. He did not touch me, but I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You have 2 options, he said softly into my ear. Option A is that you sign a promissory note for this amount, effectively indenturing yourself to me until it is paid off. Option B is that you go to Sarah's house right now, retrieve my property, and bring him back within the hour. If you do that, I will tear this paper up. Inner monologue. He is enjoying this. It is a game. He has turned our relationship into a foreclosure proceeding. He wants to own me. If I sign that paper, I am his slave forever. If I get the cat, I am bringing a monster back into the house that wants to kill me. I will get the cat, I said, my voice barely audible. Excellent choice. Mark said, oh, and Iris, before you go, you might want to check the neighborhood app. I wanted to make sure the community was aware of the security risk. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone. Notifications were piling up from the Homeowners Association app and Nextdoor. Mark had posted a thread titled, Urgent, Domestic Staff Theft, Animal Cruelty. The text read, Neighbors, please be aware that my partner, Iris, has suffered a mental break and removed my beloved service animal, Barn, from the premises without consent. She has a history of instability. If you see her with the animal, please contact the police immediately. We are worried about Baron's safety given her recent aggressive behavior. There were dozens of comments. I always thought she looked sketchy. Poor Mark. He is such a saint to deal with her. Keep that psycho away from my dogs. I looked up at him, horror constriction my throat. You called me. 萧景浩Ling. 2 hashes greater than domestic staff? You told them I am unstable? Mark shrugged. It is a narrative. Iris. It protects my reputation. If you bring Baron back, I will post an update saying it was a misunderstanding and you are seeking treatment. Go. You are wasting time. I fled. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the apartment, the door clicking shut on his smug, triumphant face. The drive to Tacoma was a blur of gray highway and rain. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands cramped. I was not going to Sarah's to save the cat. I was going to save myself. I would beg her. I would plead. I would tell her Mark was going to put me in jail. Sarah lived in a small, weathered craftsman bungalow with a peeling yellow paint job and a yard full of overgrown lavender. As I walked up the steps, I could hear dogs barking from the backyard. I banged on the door. "Sarah, please." "It is Iris." The door opened. Sarah stood there, wearing a flannel shirt covered in dog hair and holding a mug of tea. She looked at my bandage, then at my frantic eyes. "He sent you," she stated flatly. "He is going to sue me." I sobbed, collapsing onto her porch swing. "He wants $500,000. He called the police. Or he is going to." "Sarah, please, I need the cat. I know you hate him, but he is going to ruin my life." Sarah Seahill. A long, deep sound of exhaustion. She opened the door wider. "Come in." "Iris." I stepped inside. The house was cluttered but warm. It smelled of sage and wet fur. "Where is he?" I asked, looking around fearfully, expecting to see the spotted demon launching itself from a bookshelf. "In the living room," Sarah said, pointing. "Go look." I crept into the living room. On a worn-out Persian rug, near the fireplace, lay Baron. But it was not the Baron I knew. He was not pacing. He was not hissing. He was rolled over on his back, his spotted belly exposed to the air, batting lazily at a piece of yarn tied to a chair leg. His eyes were half closed. He looked like a giant, overgrown kitten. "Be careful," I warned Sarah, who walked right past me. "He is dangerous." Sarah crouched down and extended her hand. Baron head-butted her palm and let out a loud, rumbling purr. It was a sound I had never heard before. "Does he look dangerous to you?" Sarah asked quietly. I stared. Evicted howling. Tuhash is greater than I do not understand. At the penthouse, he attacks everything. He growls at me if I breathe too loud. Animals react to their environment. "Iris," Sarah said, standing up, "and they react to what is done to them. But that is not why Mark wants him back so badly. It is not about love. It is not even about control." She walked over to a cluttered desk and picked up a thick document bound in blue paper. "Sit down," she commanded. I sat on the edge of the sofa, keeping one eye on Baron. Sarah slammed the document onto the coffee table. "This," she said, tapping the cover, "is the last will and testament of our grandmother, Eleanor Sterling." "Okay," I said, confused. "Mark said she left the cat to him." "She did," Sarah said, "but Grandma knew Mark. She knew he was greedy, and she knew he had no heart. So she put a condition in the will, a very expensive condition." Sarah flipped the document open to a page marked with a yellow sticky note. She pointed to a paragraph. "Evicted howling. Tuhash is greater than." "Read it?" I leaned forward. The legalese was dense, but the numbers jumped out at me. Clause 14. The Sterling Family Trust. "I hereby bequeath the sum of $2 million to the trust, the sole beneficiary of which shall be the primary caregiver of my Savannah cat, Baron. Condition A. The funds are to be released in annual installments of $100,000 to the caregiver, provided a veterinarian certifies the animal is in excellent health and living in the caregiver's primary residence. Condition B. Upon the natural death of the animal, the remaining balance of the trust shall be transferred to the caregiver immediately. Condition C. If the animal dies of unnatural causes or negligence, the trust is dissolved and donated to charity." I read it twice. My breath hitched. $2 million. I whispered. "Mark gets $100,000 a year just for keeping the cat alive," Sarah explained, her voice dripping with disgust. "He uses that money to pay for his penthouse, his car, his suites. He does not work as a consultant. Iris. He is unemployed. He lives off the cat. He told me he was a senior partner. I said, feeling the floor drop out from under me. He made me pay rent. 2 hash is greater than for a mortgage he pays with the cat's money. It gets worse. Sarah said. She sat down opposite me. Her face grim. Read condition B again. Upon the natural death of the animal, the remaining balance, 2 hash is greater than shall be transferred. 2 hash is greater than immediately. I looked up at Sarah. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. If Baron D's, I whispered, Mark gets the rest of the $2 million. All at once. Exactly. Sarah said, but he cannot just kill the cat. That would violate condition C. It has to look like an accident. Or, or a necessity. I finished her sentence, my blood running cold. If the cat goes crazy, if the cat becomes dangerous, if the cat attacks someone so badly that a vet recommends euthanasia for public safety. I touched the bandage on my face. The pain suddenly made sense. He wanted Baron to hurt me. I said, the horror rising in my throat. He did not just let it happen. He wanted it. Why do you think he would not let you close the doors? Sarah asked. Why do you think he left you alone with him for a week? He was setting the stage. Iris. He needs a documented history of aggression. He needs a victim. I looked at Baron, who was now asleep on the rug, peaceful and innocent. He was not a monster. He was a pawn, and so was I. He is going to kill him, I said, my voice shaking with a rage I had never felt before. He is going to use my face as the excuse to put him down and take the money. Not if we stop him, Sarah said. But you cannot go back there as a victim. Iris, you have to go back as something else. Inner monologue. Mark called me domestic staff. He called me unstable. He charged me for the privilege of being his bait. He has been gaslighting me for 6 months, making me think I was clumsy, stupid, and unworthy, all while he plotted to sacrifice me for an inheritance. The Iris who cried over a broken vase is dead. She died when those claws ripped her face open. I stood up. I looked at the contract on the table. Then I looked at Sarah. I am not taking Baron back, I said firmly, but I am going back to the penthouse. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I am going to get my things. I lead, but in my head, the plan was already forming. I was not going to get my things. I was going to get a confession. The rain outside Sarah's bungalow had turned into a deluge, drumming against the roof like 1,000 nervous fingers. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of drying sage and the heavy, suffocating weight of the truth. I was still staring at the will, at the paragraph that put a $2 million bounty on the head of the sleeping cat. When Sarah stood up, she walked to a small cabinet near the kitchen and pulled out a clear plastic zipper bag. Inside was a gray t-shirt. It was mine, the one I had been wearing the night Baron attacked me. Do you recognize this? Sarah asked, placing the bag on the table next to the will. That is my sleeping shirt, I said, confused. I thought the paramedics cut it off me. They did, Sarah said. I picked it up off the bathroom floor while you were getting stitched up. I wanted to wash it for you, but when I put it in my machine, the dogs, 2 hashes greater than they went crazy. She looked at her 2 rescue pit bulls, who were currently snoozing by the back door. They started growling at the washing machine. Iris, they were trying to bite the metal. I pulled the shirt out and the smell hit me. It was faint to a human nose, underneath the detergent, but to an animal, it was like a siren. Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper with a logo from a veterinary toxicology lab. I sent a swatch of the fabric to a friend of mine at the university lab. This is the report. I took the paper. My hands were shaking so badly the text blurred. Substance detected. Synthetic feline aggression. Pheromone. High concentration. Notes. This compound is typically used in controlled wildlife studies to induce territorial defense behaviors in large cats. It mimics the scent of a rival male intruder. Highly potent. Contact with skin or fabric causes extreme, violent reaction in subjects. The room spun. I felt bile rise in my throat. Inner monologue. Mark insisted on doing the laundry. He always insisted. He said I used too much soap, that I ruined the fibers. He bought me that special organic detergent that came in an unlabeled glass jar. He said it was better for my skin. He was washing my clothes in poison. He was painting a target on my back every single night. He drugged my clothes. I whispered. The horror so cold it felt like ice water in my veins. He made me smell like an enemy. He did not just want Baron to dislike you, Sarah said, her voice hard and flat. He wanted Baron to hunt you. He was conditioning the cat. Every time you wore those clothes, Baron smelled a threat. He was probably confused, terrified even. That is why he attacked. He was defending his territory from an invisible intruder that Mark painted onto your skin. I looked at Baron. The cat I had called a monster. The cat I had hated. He rolled over in his sleep, his paw twitching. He was not a monster. He was a biological weapon, loaded and aimed by the man who shared my bed. But why? I asked, tears streaming down my face, stinging the fresh stitches. Why hurt me? If he wants the money, why not just... Soyuting 2 hashes greater than I do not know. Fake an accident for the cat? Why involve me? Sarah sat down next to me and took my cold hand in hers. Because of Condition C, she said softly, if the cat dies of unnatural causes or negligence, the money goes to charity. Mark is smart. He knows he cannot just poison Baron or throw him off the balcony. An autopsy would show it. He needs a reason to put the cat down that looks legal, that looks necessary. She flipped through the stack of papers on the table and pulled out a printout of an email chain. I hacked his cloud account, Sarah admitted without shame. Look at this email to the insurance company. I read the subject line. Inquiry regarding liability coverage for dangerous pets. The date was 2 weeks before I moved in. And this one. Sarah pointed to another paper. It was a draft letter addressed to a veterinarian in West Seattle. Dear Dr. Aaron, I am writing to you with a heavy heart regarding my Savannah cat, Baron. Despite my best efforts and extensive training, his aggression toward my partner is escalating. I am fearful for her safety. If an attack were to occur that resulted in severe disfigurement, would behavioral euthanasia be the responsible course of action? I love him, but I cannot risk a human life. Severe disfigurement. I read the words out loud. They tasted like ash. He wrote this before I even moved in. He needed a victim, Sarah said. He needed a documented history of violence. He needed you to go to the emergency room. He needed police reports. He needed stitches on your face so he could stand in front of a judge or a vet and say, look, I have no choice. This animal is a killer. I have to put him down. I dropped the paper. I felt sick, physically, violently sick. I was the sacrifice. I whispered, he did not love me. He did not even like me. I was just Xiaoyuzing Haoling. 2 hash is greater than meat. I was bait. The memories flooded back, twisted now into a grotesque new shape. Mark encouraging me to play with Baron, even when the cat hissed. Mark telling me not to lock the bedroom door. Mark leaving for a week, knowing the pheromones would build up, knowing I would be alone, knowing the storm would agitate the cat further. He had orchestrated every second of my pain. He had calculated the value of my face, and he had decided it was worth less than $2 million. He has an appointment tomorrow, Sarah said, delivering the final blow. At 10 in the morning, with a mobile vet service, he told them he captured the stray that attacked his girlfriend and needs it euthanized immediately for public safety. Tomorrow, I gasped, but he does not have the cat. He thinks you are going to bring him back. Sarah said, that is why he gave you the ultimatum. He needs you to bring Baron back to the penthouse tonight so the vet can come tomorrow morning. He kills the cat. He claims the inheritance. And he probably dumps you a week later, playing the grieving victim who lost his pet and had to break up with the girlfriend who caused all the tragedy. Inner monologue. It is a perfect crime. A masterpiece of cruelty. He destroys my face, kills his grandmother's legacy, gets $2 million, and walks away looking like a tragic hero. And I am left with a scar and a mountain of debt. He thought of everything, except for one thing. He thought I was weak. I stood up. My legs felt steady now. The trembling had stopped. The fear that had consumed me for days was gone, burned away by a white-hot, purifying rage. I walked over to the mirror in Sarah's hallway. I looked at the bandage covering half my face. I reached up and slowly peeled the tape away. The gauze fell. The wound was angry, red, and swollen. The black stitches looked like barbed wire against my pale skin. It was ugly. It was horrifying, but as I stared at my reflection, I did not see a victim anymore. I saw a survivor. Mark wants his cat back, I said, my voice low and steady. You cannot go back there. Iris, Sarah said, standing up with alarm. He is dangerous. If he knows you know, Sao yu Jing Hao Lin. Jing Hao Da Yu. He does not know. I cut her off. He thinks I am a stupid, scared little girl who is terrified of being sued. He thinks I am coming back to beg for forgiveness. I turned to Sarah. Do you have a recorder? Or a hidden camera? Sarah blinked. I have a GoPro I use for the dog training videos. Why? I am going back. I said, but I am not taking Baron. He will kill you. Sarah warned. No. I shook my head. He will not touch me. Not yet. He needs me to sign the insurance papers. He needs me to be the witness to Baron's madnesses. I walked back to the table and picked up the chemical report. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. I am going to give him exactly what he wants, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. A smile that felt foreign, sharp, and ruthless. He wants a performance? I will give him the performance of a lifetime. I will be the weeping, broken girlfriend. I will feed his ego until it bursts. And then? Sarah asked. And then I am going to bury him. I said, I am going to take his money, his reputation, and his freedom. He treated me like an animal? Oh, fine. Then I will show him what happens when you corner a wounded animal. Iris, Saoiting Haling. 2 hash is greater than Sarah started, but she stopped when she saw my eyes. I need you to wait outside the building. I instructed, my mind working with a clarity I had never possessed before. Call the police at exactly 8:30. Tell them you have evidence of animal cruelty and attempted fraud. but give me 30 minutes alone with him first. 30 minutes? Sarah hesitated. That is a long time. I need a confession. I said, the chemical report proves he drugged the clothes, but it does not prove he intended to kill the cat or that he set me up. A good lawyer could argue it was an accident, that he bought the wrong detergent. I need him to say it. I need him to brag about it. Sarah looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, she said, but take the pepper spray. And Iris? Saütinghaling. Get to. Yes, make him pay. I looked down at Baron one last time. He opened one eye, looked at me, and let out a soft chirp. I will. I promised. I walked out into the rain. The water felt cold on my scar, but I welcomed it. It felt like baptism. The Iris who wanted to be a barista and paint watercolors was gone. She had died in that penthouse. I got into my car and turned the key. The engine roared to life. I drove toward Seattle, toward the skyline that pierced the gray clouds, toward the man who had turned my life into a horror movie. Inner monologue. You wanted a thriller, Mark. You wanted a tragedy. You wrote the script. You cast the actors. You set the stage. But you forgot one rule of the genre. The final girl always survives. And she always picks up the knife. The elevator ride to the 40th floor took exactly 45 seconds. I counted them. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It was a technique my father taught me to calm down before a piano recital, back before he forgot who I was. Now, I used it to keep my heart from exploding out of my chest. My hand was in the pocket of my rain-soaked coat, gripping my phone. The voice memo app was open. The red recording button was pulsing silently. A digital heartbeat waiting to capture a ghost. Inner monologue. You are an actress. Iris, you are the weeping, broken girl he expects. You are the mess. Do not let him see your eyes. If he sees your eyes, he will know the wolf is at the door. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open to the private foyer of the penthouse. I stepped out. The door was unlocked. He was expecting me. He was expecting a surrender. I pushed the heavy door open and walked into the lion's den. The apartment was dimly lit, the ambiance curated to perfection. Jazz music played softly from the hidden speakers. Miles Davis. I think Mark sat on the Italian leather sofa, facing the panoramic window, watching the rain lash against the glass. He held a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He did not turn around. You are late, Mark said. His voice was smooth, devoid of the rage he had shown earlier. It was the voice of a man who had already won. The invoice was due an hour ago. I assume you have my property. I closed the door behind me. The latch clicked, loud and final in the quiet room. I, Saütinghaling. To hash is greater than I could not bring him. I stammered, injecting a tremor into my voice that was only half fake. Sarah would not let me take the crate. She has big dogs. I was scared. Mark slowly swiveled around. He looked at my empty hands, then at my wet coat, and finally at my face. He saw the bandage was gone, revealing the angry, swollen zipper of stitches running down my cheek. He did not wince. He did not look away. He stared at the wound with a strange, detached fascination, like a collector inspecting a flaw in a diamond. So you failed, Mark said, taking a sip of his scotch. Again, why am I not surprised? You really are useless. Iris, I give you a simple task to save your financial future, and you come back empty-handed. He stood up and walked toward the kitchen island, placing his glass on a coaster. Well, I hope you have a good lawyer, or a very generous loan shark, because I am filing the lawsuit first thing tomorrow morning. Wait, I cried out, rushing forward, but stopping at the edge of the rug, keeping the kitchen island between us. Please, Mark, I can get him. I know where she keeps the spare key. I can steal him back tonight. I just... Ling. 2 hash is greater than I need to know something first. Mark laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. You are in no position to make demands. Darling, it is not a demand, I whispered, wiping rain from my eyes. I just want to understand. You said you loved that cat. You said he was your family. But you, Ling, 2 hash is greater than you treated him like an object on that invoice. $15,000? Is that all he is to you? Mark Sehill, shaking his head as if he were explaining quantum physics to a toddler. He walked over to the liquor cabinet and poured himself another drink. He did not offer me one. Everything has a price. Iris, that is how the world works. Baron is a high-value asset. His genetics are rare. His lineage is impeccable. Why is it so hard for you to grasp that value does not always equal sentiment? But he hurts people, I said, my voice rising slightly. He hurt me. Look at my face. Mark, he tried to blind me. Why would you want a dangerous animal in your house? Unless, Ling, R. Dayu. I let the sentence hang in the air. A bait more potent than the pheromones he had sprayed on my clothes. Mark paused. He looked at me, really looked at me, gauging my intelligence. He saw a girl in a cheap, wet coat with a ruined face, trembling in his $1 million living room. He saw no threat. He saw only a broken toy asking for closure. And narcissists love to give closure, as long as it allows them to monologue. He does not hurt people. Iris, Mark said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He only hurts threats. He only hurts things that do not belong. I belonged here, I said softly. I loved you. Mark took a step closer. The smell of expensive scotch and sandalwood washed over me. You were a placeholder, he said simply. A temporary fixture. I needed someone to fill the space. Someone to... Ling. 2 hash is greater than occupy Baron's attention. Occupy his attention? I asked. By letting him hunt me? Mark smiled. It was a terrifying expression, devoid of warmth. You make it sound so dramatic. It was just biology. Baron needed stimulation. He needed a target to establish his dominance. And frankly, Iris, you made it very easy. You were so anxious, so eager to please. You practically radiated prey energy. Inner monologue. Got you. Keep going. Dig the grave deeper. But the aggression, I pressed, my hand clutching the phone tighter in my pocket. It got worse. The night of the storm, Ling, 2 hash is greater than it was like he was possessed. It was not just my anxiety. It was like he was drugged. Mark's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, then widened. Arrogance. It was his fatal flaw. He could not resist proving how much smarter he was than me. Animals are complex biochemical machines, Mark said, swirling the ice in his glass. Sometimes they just need a little Ling. 2 hash is greater than nudge. A scent marker to direct their focus, to ensure they identify the intruder correctly. A nudge? I repeated. Like a pheromone? Mark froze. The glass stopped halfway to his lips. The silence in the room stretched thin, vibrating with tension. "You have been reading too many crime novels," he said, his voice losing its playful lilt. "Where did you hear that word?" "Sarah," I lead. "She mentioned that some breeders use sprays to train guard dogs. I just wondered." "Sao Jing Hao, Ling. 2# is greater than if maybe you used something to train Baron. To make him protect the apartment." Mark relaxed. He chuckled. "Sarah, of course, that woman sees conspiracies in her cereal bowl. But let us say, hypothetically, that I did use a training aid. What of it? It is my house. It is my cat. I can train him however I see fit, even if it means getting your girlfriend mauled?" I asked. "Even if it means ruining her face?" Mark set the glass down hard on the counter. "Stop making this about you," he snapped. "My God, you are selfish. Do you have any idea what is at stake here? It is not about your vanity, Iris. It is about the trust." "The trust?" I feigned ignorance. "What trust?" "The Sterling family trust." Mark spat, his patience evaporating. $2 million. That is what that cat is walking around with. $2 million that belongs to me. But my grandmother, that vindictive old bat, tied it up in a ridiculous clause. I only get the full amount if the cat dies. Naturally, he leaned over the counter, his face contorted with greed and malice. "Or," he continued, his voice dropping to a hiss, "if the cat becomes a liability, if the cat becomes so dangerous, so uncontrollable, that a veterinarian has no choice but to put him down for the safety of the public, for the safety of Sao Jing Haoling. Iki, Sai, Sao Jing Haoling. 2# is greater than a young woman living in the home." I stared at him, my mouth slightly open. The recording was capturing every syllable, so I was the excuse. I whispered, "You wanted him to attack me. You wanted me to get hurt so you could kill him and take the money." Mark straightened his cuffs, regaining his composure. He looked at me with pure disdain. "You were a necessary sacrifice. Iris, do not take it personally. It was a business decision. I needed a documented history of violence. I needed a victim with a pretty face and a sob story. You played your part perfectly. The stitches? Consider them your severance package." "My severance package," I repeated. "Yes," Mark said. "And now, you are going to finish the job. You are going to bring Baron back tomorrow morning. The vet is coming. You will show him your face. You will cry. You will say the cat tried to kill you. And then, when it is done, I will pay off your student loans. I will give you $20,000. You can fix your face and go back to making coffee. Everyone wins." He smiled again, the smile of a shark. "Now," he said, extending his hand. "Where is he?" I looked at his hand. Manicured, clean, a hand that had never known a day of hard labor. A hand that had petted a cat while planning its execution. I stopped trembling. I pulled my hand out of my pocket. I did not hold a key. I held my phone. I tapped the screen. "Stop recording." I looked up at him. The tears were gone. My posture straightened. I felt the cold steel of the Iris who had survived the storm. "I have it all," I said. My voice was steady. It echoed off the slate floors. Mark blinked. "What?" "The pheromones," I said. "I have the lab report from the t-shirt. The synthetic aggression spray you put on my clothes. And now, I have this." I held up the phone. "I have you admitting it. Mark, I have you admitting to fraud, to animal cruelty, to assault, a necessary sacrifice. That is what you called me. A jury is going to love that. Mark's face went white, then red, then a color I had never seen on a human being. A deep, bruised purple of pure, unadulterated rage. "Give me the phone," he said. His voice was not smooth anymore. It was a growl. "No," I said. "I already sent the file to the cloud, and to Sarah, and to your lawyer, you lying little bitch." He lunged. He moved faster than I expected. He vaulted over the kitchen island, his expensive shoes skidding on the slate. I scrambled backward, knocking over a bar stool. It clattered loudly, but the sound was drowned out by the roar of blood in my ears. "Give it to me," Mark screamed. He was not the cool, collected businessman anymore. He was a cornered animal. He grabbed the lapel of my coat. I twisted away, the fabric tearing. I felt his hand claw at my hair, yanking my head back. Pain exploded in my scalp. Inner monologue. He is going to kill me. He has to. He knows it is over. I did not scream. I did not beg. I remembered Sarah's voice. "Make him pay." I swung my arm back and smashed my phone into his face. The corner of the device connected with his nose. There was a sickening crunch. Mark howled and let go of my hair, clutching his face. Blood spurted through his fingers. Real blood, not the metaphorical blood on his hands. "You broke my nose," he shrieked, his voice nasal and wet. "I am just getting started." I panted, backing toward the living room. He looked at me, blood streaming down his chin onto his white shirt. His eyes were wide with shock and hatred. He realized I was not prey anymore. He charged again. "I will kill you," he screamed. "I will throw you off this balcony." I fumbled in my other pocket. My fingers closed around the cold canister of pepper spray Sarah had given me. Mark was 3 feet away, 2 feet. I could see the madness in his eyes. I pulled the canister out, aimed, and pressed the trigger. A stream of bright orange liquid shot out, hitting him directly in the eyes. An open mouth. Mark stopped mid-stride as if he had hit a wall. He screamed, a sound far worse than the one Baron had made. It was a guttural, primal shriek of agony. He clawed at his eyes. Blindingly, stumbling backward, he crashed into the coffee table, the glass one that was invisible and dangerous. The table shattered under his weight. Mark fell into a pile of jagged glass shards, writhing and screaming, clutching his face. My eyes, oh God, my eyes. I stood over him, my chest heaving. The pepper spray hung in the air, stinging my throat. But I did not care. I looked down at the man who had owned me for 6 months, the man who had put a price on my life. He was rolling in the wreckage of his perfect apartment, bleeding, blinded, and pathetic. Clause 7, Section C, I said, my voice cutting through his screams. Any damage to property caused by the tenant, Saoyuting Ha Ling, 2 hashes greater than will be reimbursed at full retail value. I stepped over him. I think you broke the table. Mark, I walked to the door. My hands were shaking again. But this time, it was from adrenaline, not fear. I opened the door just as the elevator pinged. 2 uniformed police officers stepped out, guns holstered but hands ready. Behind them was Sarah. Drop the weapon, one officer shouted when he saw the pepper spray in my hand. I dropped the canister. I raised my hands. He is in there, I said calmly. He confessed. It is all on my phone. Sarah rushed past the officers and grabbed me. Are you okay? Did he touch you? I looked at her. I touched the stitches on my cheek. Then I looked back at the sobbing heap of a man on the floor. No, I said. He never touched me. He never even saw me. The flashing blue and red lights of the police cruisers reflected off the wet pavement outside the zenith, turning the raindrops into falling jewels. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was a chaotic blend of static from police radios and the pathetic, wet sobbing of a man who had lost everything. I sat on the ambulance gurney in the hallway, a paramedic dabbing at a small cut on my hand where the pepper spray canister had pinched my skin. I refused to go to the hospital. I needed to see this. I needed to watch the finale. Inside the apartment, Mark was no longer the master of his domain. He was handcuffed, sitting on the ruined floor amidst the shards of his invisible glass table, his eyes swollen shut and streaming with orange tears. A towel was draped over his shoulders, ruining the line of his bespoke suit. "You cannot do this," Mark screamed, his voice cracking. "I am the victim here. She broke into my house. She assaulted me. I am a senior partner at Heavy Industries. Do you know who I am?" Officer Miller, a burly man with a face carved from granite, stepped out of the living room holding an evidence bag. Inside was my phone. We listened to the recording. "Mr. Sterling," the officer said, his voice flat and unimpressed, "and we have the lab report from your sister regarding the chemical irritants found on the victim's clothing. You confess to fraud, animal cruelty, and conspiracy to commit assault. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you start using it." Inner monologue. Look at him, stripped of his lighting, his angles, and his lies. He looks small. He looks like a child who broke a toy and is crying because he got caught, not because he is sorry. Sarah stood by the elevator, talking to a detective. She pointed at me, then at Mark. She handed the detective the blue folder containing the last will and testament. "He is in violation of Clause 14, Condition C," Sarah said loud enough for Mark to hear. "Negligence and intent to harm, as the secondary listed guardian in the trust. And since the animal is currently in my possession for safety reasons, I am petitioning for immediate transfer of the estate." Mark's head snapped up, despite his blindness. "No," he shrieked. "That is my money. That is my cat. You stole him. You forfeited him," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the room like a gavel. "The moment you admitted to planning his death for profit, you lost the trust. The lawyers are already drafting the motion. It is over." "Mark." Two officers hauled Mark to his feet. He stumbled, his expensive Italian loafers sliding on the slate floor he had loved more than me. "Iris," he shouted, turning his head blindly. "Searching for me. Tell them it was a joke. I will pay you. I will give you anything." I stood up. I walked over to him until I was close enough to smell the sour stench of pepper spray and fear radiating off him. "You have nothing to give me, Mark," I said softly. "You are bankrupt. In every sense of the word. Get him out of here," Officer Miller commanded. The walk from the penthouse to the squad car was the longest walk of Mark's life. And because God, or perhaps just karma, has a sense of humor, the fire alarm had been triggered by the pepper spray fumes, causing the entire building to evacuate. The lobby of the Zenith was packed. There stood the neighbors from the Homeowners Association, the woman from 4B with the poodle, the man from 6C who was on the board, the young couple who had commented on Mark's Instagram posts about what a saint he was. They all watched in stunned silence as Mark Sterling, the golden boy of the building, was marched out in handcuffs, his face red and swollen, screaming obscenities at his own sister. "He poisoned the cat," Sarah shouted to the crowd, seizing the narrative before Mark could spin it. He drugged his girlfriend's clothes to make the cat attack her so he could claim an inheritance. He is a monster. A gasp rippled through the lobby. Phones were raised. Flashes went off. The live stream had begun. I walked out behind them, Sarah's arm around my shoulders. I saw the faces of the people who had called me domestic staff and unstable online. They looked at my stitched face, then at the police, and finally at the ground. Ashamed. Inner monologue. Watch closely. See how quickly the idol falls. See how fragile his kingdom really was. By the time we got back to Sarah's house in Tacoma, the internet had done what the internet does best. It had devoured him. I sat on Sarah's worn velvet sofa, a mug of hot tea in my hands, while Baron purred on my lap. I scrolled through my phone. The post on the Homeowners Association app had been deleted, but the screenshots were everywhere. A video from the lobby had gone viral on TikTok with 2 million views in 3 hours. The hashtag number #CatDaddyFraud was trending. I opened the comments. I live in that building. This guy was always a creep. He yelled at the doorman once for looking at him wrong. Wait, he drugged the girl. Look at her face in the background. That scar is gnarly. Hope she sues him for everything. Justice for Baron. Imagine hurting a cat for money. Sicko. Then, an email notification popped up. It was from the corporate headquarters of the consulting firm where Mark claimed to be a senior partner. It was a press release, forwarded to me by a friend who worked in public relations. Official statement. We are aware of the allegations against Mark Sterling. We would like to clarify that Mr. Sterling was never a senior partner at our firm. He was employed as a junior analyst and was terminated 3 months ago for performance issues. We condemn his actions and have no further association with him. I laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound that hurt my throat. He was fired 3 months ago. I said to Sarah, he was unemployed the entire time I lived there. Sarah looked up from her laptop, where she was emailing the family lawyer. He was living off the credit cards and the expectation of the inheritance. She said, he was drowning. Iris, that is why he accelerated the timeline. That is why he needed you to get hurt fast. He was running out of money. I looked down at Baron. He kneaded my thigh with his claws, but gently this time. He knew he was safe. He made me pay rent, I whispered, shaking my head. He made me pay for the groceries. He was broke, and he was leeching off me while plotting to destroy me. And now everyone knows, Sarah said with grim satisfaction. His reputation is ash. He will never work in this town again. The animal cruelty charges alone will make him a pariah. In prison, they do not take kindly to people who hurt pets and women. My phone buzzed again. A text from Maya. Maya, oh my God. Iris, I am so sorry. I saw the news. I feel like such an idiot for believing him. Are you okay? Can I come over? I did not reply. I was not ready for apologies. I was not ready for the pity of people who had watched me drown and critiqued my swimming technique. I turned off my phone. The silence in Sarah's house was different from the silence in the penthouse. It was not empty. It was full of dogs breathing, the refrigerator humming, and the rain tapping against the window. It was the sound of reality. What happens now? I asked. Sarah closed her laptop. Now, the lawyers do their job. With the evidence you got, Mark will likely take a plea deal to avoid a long sentence, but he is looking at time. The trust is frozen until the guardianship is officially transferred to me. Once that happens, Sao Jinghao Ling, Jinghao Dayu, she paused, looking at me with a soft expression. Once that happens, The monthly stipend comes to me. And Iris, I do not need $100,000 a year to run a dog rescue in Tacoma. It is your money. Sarah, I said, it is your grandmother's legacy. It is blood money. She corrected. And you spilled the most blood. We are going to make this right. But first, you need to heal, not just your face. She pointed to the mirror in the hallway. Go look at yourself. Really look. I stood up and walked to the mirror. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me exhausted and achy. My hair was matted, my clothes were torn, and my face was a roadmap of violence. The stitches were black and stark against my pale skin, but the girl in the mirror was not looking down. Her chin was up, her eyes were clear. For the first time in 6 months, I did not wonder if I was pretty enough. I did not wonder if I was worthy of the space I occupied. I touched the cold glass of the mirror. Inner monologue. They will call me a victim in the papers. They will say I was lucky. But luck had nothing to do with it. I walked into the fire and I dragged the devil out by his ear. Let them talk. Let the neighbors whisper. I know the truth. I am not the girl who got clawed by a cat. I am the girl who brought down the house. I turned back to Sarah. I am hungry, I said. Do you have any of that cheap wine? The kind that comes in a box? Sarah smiled. I think we can do better than that tonight. Outside, the storm was finally breaking. The clouds were parting, revealing a sliver of a cold, white moon. The nightmare was over. The reckoning had just begun. 3 weeks later, the doctor removed the stitches. The sensation was not painful, merely strange, like a tiny, cold insect crawling across my cheekbone. He used a pair of silver tweezers to pull the black threads out one by one, placing them on a sterile metal tray where they curled up like dead spiders. It is healing nicely, the doctor said, adjusting his glasses. The redness will fade. The ridge of the scar will flatten over time. But you must be diligent with the silicone sheets and the sunscreen. Ultraviolet rays will turn it purple. I looked into the handheld mirror he gave me. The angry zipper was gone, replaced by a thin, jagged line of pink tissue that bisected my left cheek. It was not hideous. It was not the disfigurement Mark had fantasized about in his emails to the vet, but it was there. It changed the symmetry of my face. It changed the way I smiled. It made me look like someone who had survived something, and I was not sure I wanted to look like a survivor. I miss looking like a girl who drank lattes and worried about art history exams. Thank you, I said, my voice quiet. I walked out of the clinic and into the Seattle drizzle. It was always raining. It felt like the city was trying to wash the last 6 months off the pavement. But some stains were too deep. Mark was gone. That was the headline. He had taken a plea deal faster than he used to drink his morning espresso. His lawyer, a tired man with a cheap suit, had looked at the evidence, the recording, the chemical report, the emails, and told Mark he had 0 chance at trial. Mark pleaded guilty to felony animal cruelty and attempted fraud. He was currently sitting in a minimum security facility in Monroe, serving a 2-year sentence. It felt anticlimactic. There was no grand trial, no witness stand, just paperwork signed in a windowless room. The penthouse was listed for sale by the bank. The invisible glass table was in a landfill. I was staying in a sublet apartment in Capitol Hill, a studio with peeling wallpaper and a radiator that clanked like a dying engine. It was ugly, and it was loud, and it was mine. I sat on the floor, unpacking the few boxes Sarah had helped me retrieve from the Zenith. My clothes still smelled like the detergent Mark had forced me to use, the lavender scent that disguised the pheromones. I picked up a sweater. I brought it to my nose. My stomach lurched. Inner monologue. I have to burn this. I have to burn everything. I cannot wear these clothes. Every time I put them on, I will wonder if I am being hunted. I will wonder if there is a target on my back. I threw the sweater into a trash bag, then the jeans, then the scarf. I threw it all away until I was left with nothing but the clothes on my back. Later that afternoon, I drove to Sarah's house in Tacoma. I needed to sign the final papers for the witness statement regarding the trust transfer. Sarah met me on the porch. The rain had stopped, leaving the air smelling of wet dirt and pine needles. Baron was sitting in the window, watching the birds. He looked fat and happy. He did not look like $2 million. He just looked like a cat. Tea? Sarah asked, holding out a steaming mug. No, thank you, I said. I sat on the swing, keeping my distance. I just want to sign the papers and go. Sarah sat opposite me. She looked tired. The victory had taken a toll on her too. Fighting your own family, even the rotten parts, leaves a residue. The lawyers say the transfer will be finalized by Friday. Sarah said, Mark has been officially removed as the beneficiary. The trust is now under my name as the primary guardian. Congratulations, I said. The word tasted bitter. Sarah looked at me sharply. Do not say it like that. We won. Iris, did we? I asked, touching the fresh pink scar on my face. You got the money. You got the cat. You got justice for your grandmother. But what did I get? Sarah? Sarah went silent. She looked down at her hands. I got used, I said, the realization finally finding its voice. Mark used me as bait. But you, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling, 2 hash is greater than you used me to. Did you not? Iris, that is not fair. Sarah protested weakly. Is it? I looked her in the eye. You knew. You knew about the pheromones. You suspected it the moment you smelled my shirt that night. But you let me go back there. You let me walk back into that penthouse, alone, with a man you knew was dangerous. I sent you with pepper spray, Sarah said defensively. I was outside with the police. You sent me to get a confession. I corrected. You needed him to admit it on tape so you could secure the inheritance transfer. The chemical report on the shirt was not enough to strip him of the money completely. He could have claimed it was an accident. You needed him to say the words, necessary sacrifice. You needed him to admit intent. Sarah did not deny it. She could not. I was the pawn. I whispered, in a war between you and your brother over a dead woman's money. I was just the girl who got clawed in the middle. Sarah Seahill. A long, ragged sound. She leaned forward. I am sorry. Iris, truly, I hated seeing you in danger, but I knew you were the only one who could destroy him. He underestimated you. He thought you were weak. I knew you were not. I did not use you. I empowered you. Empowered. I repeated. Is that what we call it? You stopped a monster. Sarah said firmly. He would have done this to someone else. Maybe someone who would not have survived. Maybe the next girl would not have woken up when the cat attacked. You saved the next girl. Iris. Inner monologue. She is right. Logically, she is right. I did a good thing. I took down a bad man. So why do I feel so empty? Why do I feel like I lost something more important than my smooth skin? I am leaving Seattle, I said abruptly. Sarah blinked. Where will you go? I do not know, I said. Somewhere dry. Somewhere where it does not rain every single day. Somewhere where nobody knows who Mark Sterling is. You need money to move. Sarah said, you need a fresh start. I have my tips, I said, lifting my chin. I will manage. Iris, do not be proud, Sarah said, her voice softening. The trust, Saoyu Tsinghaling, 2 hashes greater than it provides a stipend for the caregiver. But there is a clause for associated expenses. I consider your recovery an associated expense. I do not want his money. I spat. I do not want anything that comes from that family. It is not his money, Sarah said. It is restitution. And frankly, you earned it. You paid for it in blood. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. She placed it on the table between us. Open it later, she said. Please. I looked at the envelope. It was thick. I stood up. I did not touch the envelope. I have to go, I said. Goodbye. Sarah, take care of Baron. Iris. Sarah called out as I walked down the steps. You are going to be okay. You are stronger than you think. I did not turn back. I got into my car and drove away. I drove until the skyline of Seattle was just a gray smudge in the rearview mirror. I pulled into a rest stop on the edge of the city limit. The rain was finally stopping, the clouds breaking to reveal a bruised purple sunset. I looked at my face in the rearview mirror. I traced the line of the scar. I was 22 years old. I had no boyfriend. I had no job. I had a permanent facial injury and a deep, abiding distrust of anyone who tried to tell me they loved me. I opened the glove compartment. I had taken the envelope from the table when Sarah was not looking. I was not proud, but I was practical. Mark had taught me that much. I tore it open. Inside was a cashier's check. I stared at the number. I counted the zeros. My breath hitched in my throat. It was not a stipend. It was not a reimbursement. It was an exit strategy. I looked out at the highway, at the cars rushing toward destinations unknown. For the first time in months, the knot of anxiety in my chest loosened. It did not fix the hole in my heart. Money never does, but it bought me a car that would not break down. It bought me a new zip code. It bought me the time to figure out who Iris was. Now that she was not just a victim or a pawn, I put the car in gear. I merged onto the highway. Heading south, I did not turn on the radio. I just listened to the hum of the tires on the asphalt, the sound of moving forward, leaving the wreckage behind. The sun in Santa Fe was different from the sun in Seattle. It was not a polite, distant white disk filtering through clouds. It was a physical weight, heavy and golden, baking the red clay earth until it cracked. I liked the heat. It felt like it was cauterizing the damp, moldy memories of the Pacific Northwest right out of my bones. I stood in the center of a small, dusty studio I had rented on the outskirts of town. The check Sarah gave me, $100,000, had not made me rich, but it had bought me silence. It paid for a used Jeep, a year of rent in this quiet adobe casita, and enough art supplies to last a lifetime. I was painting again, but I was not painting watercolors of flowers or coffee shops anymore. My canvases were large, aggressive things. Swaths of charcoal, black and arterial red, jagged lines that looked like scars. They were ugly paintings, unsettling to look at, yet a gallery downtown had just bought 3 of them. The owner said they possessed a raw, kinetic violence that people found compelling. I dipped my brush into a jar of crimson paint. Inner monologue. Mark always said I had no vision. He said my art was decorative, not substantive. He was right. I needed to bleed to find my substance. I needed to be torn open to see what was underneath. A shadow moved across the patio door. I froze. My hand went instinctively to the pocket of my smock, where I kept a small, folding utility knife. It was a habit I could not break, but it was just a cat. He was a stray I had been feeding for a month. He was nothing like Baron. He was missing half of one ear. His orange fur was matted with dust, and he had a limp in his back leg. He was broken. He was common. I opened the screen door. "Hello, ugly," I said softly. The cat did not hiss. He did not growl. He let out a rasping meow and rubbed his head against my ankle. I crouched down and ran my hand over his rough fur. I felt the scars on his skin, the roadmap of fights he had survived in the alleyways. I picked him up. He was heavy, solid. I had named him Chance, not because I believed in luck, but because that was what Mark had never given anyone. My phone buzzed on the work table. I ignored it. It was probably my mother, asking when I was coming home. Or Sarah, sending another update I did not read. I knew Mark was eligible for parole in 18 months. Sarah had emailed me that detail a week ago. She seemed worried. She asked if I wanted to install a security system. I did not reply. I was not afraid of Mark anymore. The truth, the dark, uncomfortable truth that I only admitted to myself in the dead of night was that I was not the innocent victim everyone thought I was. Not entirely. I walked over to the mirror hanging by the door. I touched the scar on my face. It had faded to a pale white line, a permanent smirk etched into my skin. I thought back to the beginning, to the first time I saw the penthouse, the first time Mark belittled me. I had stayed. I had signed the contract. I had let him pay for my dinners and buy me clothes. I had ignored the red flags, not because I was blind, but because I was hungry. I wanted the life he offered. I wanted the view from the 40th floor. I had traded my self-respect for proximity to wealth, and I had paid the price. I was greedy too, just for different things, and in the end, I had enjoyed it. I opened the drawer of my work table and pulled out a small flash drive. It contained the recording of Mark screaming as the pepper spray hit his eyes. I plugged it into my laptop. I put my headphones on. I pressed play. I listened to his arrogance crumble. I listened to the sound of a man who thought he was a god being reduced to a weeping child. A small, cold smile touched my lips. I was not just a survivor. I was the one who held the knife. I had taken his money. I had taken his reputation. I had destroyed his life with a single phone call and a canister of chemicals. And I slept like a baby every single night. Chance jumped up onto the table and nudged my hand, asking for attention. I closed the laptop. "You are right," I told the cat. "Enough dwelling." I walked to the easel. I picked up the brush. The world was full of predators, like Mark. They roamed the high-rises and the alleyways, looking for soft things to eat. They looked for girls who apologized too much. They looked for weakness, but they forgot that nature adapts. Soft things develop shells. Prey animals develop poison. I looked at the canvas. I painted a single, sharp yellow eye staring out from the darkness. It was Baron's eye, but it was also mine. I was not afraid of the monsters anymore. I was the thing the monsters were afraid of.